The hangar was alive with the rumble of engines and the sharp clatter of boots on metal. Men in crisp flight suits leaned casually against their sleek F-16s, swapping war stories from battles in deserts and mountains far from home. Then she appeared. Quiet, slight, a woman. Their eyes flicked to her, sharp with disbelief. A woman? Here, is this some kind of joke? Maybe she should be cleaning this place, not flying these jets. They whispered. They smirked. They didn't see a pilot. They saw a distraction, an anomaly in a brotherhood forged in fire and steel. But she didn't flinch. Lieutenant Jasmine Carter's eyes burned with steady fire, the kind earned in silence and sweat, not empty words. She carried a secret they hadn't guessed, a secret that would change everything, because this was more than a new recruit. She was the only pilot in the entire country cleared to fly the B-2 Spirit, the most advanced stealth bomber the U.S. Army had ever built. And the men who doubted her, they just didn't know what hit them yet. If you're ready to see how Jasmine flips the script and takes control, hit that like button, subscribe, and comment below, because this story is just getting started. Lieutenant Jasmine Carter's mornings began before the sun rose. The soft hum of the base waking up was the soundtrack to her steady routine, lacing up boots, checking flight gear, and quietly preparing for the day ahead. To most, she seemed just another fresh-faced pilot, eager but untested. To the men who ran this squadron, the elite, the battle-hardened, she was a question mark wrapped in a uniform, a woman in a world of men. But Jasmine knew better. She was not here to prove herself to anyone but the skies. She lived simply, but her mind was a fortress of precision and discipline. Her breakfasts were measured, her flights meticulously planned. She had earned every hour in the cockpit, every stripe on her sleeve. But the men she now flew alongside, they didn't see that. They saw the rumors. She's soft. She's a girl. She won't last a week. That last one was a favorite. Captain Miller, a grizzled veteran with deep-set eyes and a jaw scar that told stories of close calls in Afghanistan, once sneered, "This isn't Sunday school, Carter. You're not here to make friends." But Jasmine just nodded. She didn't need their approval. Her real strength lay somewhere else. Far beyond the F-16s she would eventually fly alongside. Jasmine was the only pilot in the United States authorized to fly the B-2 Spirit, the crown jewel of the U.S. Air Force, though technically operated by the Air Force, with critical Army coordination in joint missions. The B-2 was a marvel of stealth technology, its sleek black wings slicing silently through the sky, undetectable to radar, able to deliver precision strikes anywhere in the world. A plane so secretive, so rare, that very few had the clearance to touch it, and Jasmine was one of them. Her journey to this moment had been anything but easy. Growing up in a small town with few role models who looked like her, Jasmine dreamed of flying high, not just in the skies, but in breaking barriers. She fought every stereotype, every doubt cast by voices telling her she was too fragile or too different. She fought harder than anyone else. Her early days in flight school were grueling. Long hours in simulators, endless physical training, and the constant pressure to outshine her male counterparts. But she rose. With each successful flight, each earned commendation, she chipped away at the walls of prejudice. The quietest in the room, the sharpest in the sky. Now, at her new squadron's base, the tension was thick. The men eyed her warily. The air crackled not with camaraderie, but with skepticism. She watched as they whispered behind their hands, as they questioned her presence, her ability, her very place in their world. But Jasmine had already proven herself. In classified briefings, she had demonstrated unparalleled mastery of the B-2's complex systems. In training missions, she had outperformed seasoned pilots, navigating challenges that left others breathless. Yet here, she was expected to start at the bottom, proving what she already knew. She wasn't just a pilot. She was a force, a symbol. The first step was to earn their respect. The second, to change their minds. Later that day, Jasmine stood outside the briefing room. The men filtered in, their voices low but sharp. Captain Miller glanced at her, lips curling into a smirk. "You ready, Ricky? Hope you can keep up." Jasmine met his gaze without flinching. "I don't plan on keeping up. I plan on leading." The words hung in the air. Some laughed. Others stared. But no one challenged her. Not yet. That evening, Jasmine sat alone, reviewing flight data from a recent mission. Her fingers traced lines on the tablet, analyzing every detail. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mentor, Colonel Stevens. "Remember, Jasmine, they don't hate you for what you are. They fear what you'll become." She smiled. That fear was their weakness, and she was ready to exploit it. As the days turned into weeks, Jasmine faced countless tests, verbal jabs, isolation, outright dismissal. But each challenge only sharpened her resolve. In the simulators, she soared. In the skies, she commanded. And in the quiet moments, she prepared for the day she would no longer be underestimated. Because Jasmine Carter wasn't just a pilot. She was the future of the Air Force. And no one would forget that. The squadron briefing room was packed, buzzing with the kind of energy that only comes before a mission. Jasmine Carter sat quietly near the back, absorbing the atmosphere with a steady gaze. Around her, the men in flight suits, seasoned pilots all, chatted in low voices, their conversations punctuated by occasional glances her way. She could feel the skepticism in the air like static. Captain Miller was leading the briefing, his voice firm and clipped as he went over the details of the day's combat simulation mission. "Today's exercise will push your endurance, your reaction times, and your ability to operate under pressure," he said, locking eyes briefly with Jasmine. "I expect every pilot here to perform at their absolute best. No excuses." A few smirks followed, as if Miller was reminding her more than anyone else. After the briefing, the pilots suited up and filed out to their jets. Jasmine's F-16 sat gleaming on the tarmac, but she wasn't headed there. Her mission wasn't to fly the F-16 today. Instead, she was scheduled for a command post coordination role, a strategic position coordinating the flight paths of the squadron. Still, it was a crucial role that required deep knowledge of every aircraft in play. As she made her way toward the operations center, a group of pilots blocked her path. One stepped forward, Lieutenant Daniels, a rough-edged pilot with a cocky grin. "Hey, rookie," he said, voice dripping with mockery. "How's it feel being the only girl in a bunch of real men? Don't strain yourself." Jasmine looked him square in the eye. "I'm not here to strain, Daniels. I'm here to win." A laugh erupted from the others. "Yes, sure," Daniels said, stepping closer, voice dropping low. "Why don't you stick to cleaning the planes? Leave the flying to us." Before she could reply, another pilot, Larson, chimed in. "She's just lucky to be here, that's all. Bet she doesn't even know the controls on an F-16. Jasmine's jaw tightened. She had heard this all before. But this time, she was ready. The simulation started. One by one, the F-16 pilots scrambled into the sky, executing dogfights, evasive maneuvers, and mock strikes. Radio chatter filled the airwaves, some laced with competitive banter. Jasmine monitored everything from the command post, her eyes flicking between screens, analyzing every move. Minutes in, things began to fall apart for some of the pilots. Daniels nearly clipped another jet during a tight maneuver. Larson's targeting system glitched, causing a near miss. But Jasmine stayed calm. She saw the openings, predicted the moves, and sent timely course corrections and intel to the pilots. When her turn came to demonstrate direct control in the simulator, she stepped into the cockpit. The familiar hum of the F-16's engine filled her ears. Her hands moved confidently over the controls. No hesitation, no doubt. She executed a flawless stealth insertion, weaving through enemy radar zones and outmaneuvering opponents in tight formation. Back in the operations center, the room fell silent. Even Captain Miller's smirk vanished. After the simulation, the pilots gathered in the briefing room again. Captain Miller cleared his throat. "Lieutenant Carter, that was impressive," he admitted, his tone begrudging. Daniels shot a glare, but said nothing. Larson's jaw clenched. Jasmine felt a shift, the thin veil of skepticism beginning to crack. Her performance spoke louder than any insult. Later that evening, Jasmine sat alone on the flight line, staring up at the night sky dotted with stars. Her phone buzzed, a message from Colonel Stevens, her mentor. You proved them wrong today, but the real test is how you handle what comes next. She typed back, I'm ready. The night was quiet, but Jasmine's mind raced. She knew the road ahead would be tougher. More challenges, more battles, not all of them in the sky. But she was ready to face everyone. Because Jasmine Carter was not just a pilot. She was a fighter. The days following the simulation should have been filled with camaraderie and mutual respect, the kind that forms when pilots push their limits together. But instead, Jasmine Carter found herself navigating a battlefield far more treacherous than any aerial dogfight. It started small. The snide comments escalated into outright hostility. In the locker room, she found her flight jacket slashed, a cruel message stitched in black thread. Go home, girl. During a briefing, Captain Miller's words carried an edge sharp enough to cut through steel. Lieutenant, don't forget your place. Jasmine's hands clenched into fists, but her voice remained steady. I know exactly where I belong. Her defiance ignited a firestorm. One afternoon, as she returned from a late training session, Jasmine heard laughter echoing down the hall. A group of pilots crowded around, clearly waiting for her. You flying that fancy bee? 2 doesn't mean you're better than us. Larson sneered, stepping forward. Daniels held up a helmet, now smeared with grease and dirt. Maybe we should give you a real welcome. Before Jasmine could react, Daniels shoved her helmet to the ground and crushed it underfoot. The room exploded with jeers and laughter, but Jasmine didn't back down. Her eyes blazed as she spoke. You want a war? Fine, but it won't be in the skies. The men's laughter faltered. Jasmine's courage was a challenge none had expected. Weeks later, the tension reached a boiling point. During a routine maintenance check, Jasmine discovered sabotage. Critical wiring in her jet had been tampered with. It was no accident. Someone wanted her grounded. She reported it immediately. The base commander launched an investigation, but whispers circulated, suggesting Jasmine had overreacted or invited trouble. Yet Jasmine refused to be intimidated. Her mentor, Colonel Stevens, offered quiet support. This isn't just about you, he said. It's about changing the culture. Jasmine nodded. She was ready to fight on every front. The final blow came during a joint training exercise. Jasmine led the squadron into a simulated combat zone, navigating through enemy radar and anti-aircraft fire. Her strategy was flawless, her commands crisp. Yet, when the exercise ended, a critical debrief was withheld. Orders were mysteriously delayed. Her access to key systems was restricted. Someone was trying to clip her wings. The message was clear. She was not welcome. But Jasmine Carter was no ordinary pilot. She retaliated quietly but effectively. She gathered allies, pilots who had seen her skill and integrity. She compiled evidence of sabotage and discrimination. She pushed back through official channels, demanding accountability. Her resilience inspired others to speak up. Slowly, the tide began to turn. In a rare moment of confrontation, Captain Miller cornered Jasmine in the hallway. You're lucky the brass is watching. He growled. Keep pushing, and it won't end well. Jasmine met his glare without fear. I'm not here to ask for luck. I'm here to earn respect, and I'm not leaving. That night, alone in her quarters, Jasmine reflected. The war she faced wasn't just in the skies. It was here, in the shadows, in whispered threats, in broken helmets. But every scar, every challenge, only sharpened her resolve. Because the line they crossed wasn't just about her. It was about every woman, every minority, every soldier fighting to be seen as equal. And Jasmine Carter was ready to lead that fight. The squadron meeting room was tense the next morning, thick with unspoken words and grudging glances. Jasmine Carter sat near the front, steady as always, as Captain Miller ran through the day's agenda. But today wasn't about routine. Today was different. Jasmine had something to say. She waited for the right moment, and when it came, she spoke with calm authority. Before we move on, I want to clarify something. she began, eyes locking with Miller's. "I am the only pilot in the United States authorized to fly the B-2 Spirit." A hush fell. Miller's eyebrows lifted in disbelief. "Is that so?" he said, voice laced with skepticism. "Yes," Jasmine replied. "The same B-2 Spirit that carried out the mission that ended Osama bin Laden's reign." She paused, letting the weight of that statement sink in. "Many of you fly F-16s, which are exceptional planes, but the B-2 is a different class, stealth technology that allows us to operate where no one else can." Murmurs rippled through the room. Larson scoffed. "Prove it." Jasmine nodded and connected her tablet to the main display. Within seconds, classified mission footage flickered on the screen, a rare, secure recording of a B-2 Spirit mission. The sleek black bomber glided silently through the night sky, evading detection. She narrated calmly, "That was my flight crew and I, flying hundreds of miles into enemy territory undetected, delivering precision strikes that saved countless lives." The men watched, captivated despite themselves. Miller's smirk faded. Jasmine continued, "I didn't come here to boast, but to remind you that judging me by my gender is not only unfair, it's ignorant." She held their gaze. "We all have roles to play in this fight. Mine just happens to be flying a plane that changes the game." Silence stretched. Then Captain Miller finally spoke. "Well, Lieutenant Carter, seems you've got a hell of a resume." She allowed herself a small, controlled smile. But she knew the battle wasn't over. Not yet. After the meeting, Jasmine received mixed reactions. Some nodded with newfound respect. Others whispered behind closed doors, still unwilling to fully accept her. But now, no one could deny her skills or credentials. Her revelation had shifted the narrative. She was no longer just a new girl. She was a force to be reckoned with. That evening, Jasmine and Colonel Stevens reviewed the mission footage together. "People will always try to tear down what they don't understand," he said, "but you've just made them realize there's more to you than they guessed." Jasmine nodded. "I'm ready to fly lead missions now." The hangar buzzed with its usual morning energy. Jets warming up, mechanics bustling, pilots preparing. But beneath the surface, something had shifted. Jasmine Carter wasn't just a new recruit anymore. She was becoming a legend. After her revelation in the meeting room, word spread quickly. The men who doubted her found themselves scrambling for explanations. Some grudgingly acknowledged her skills. Others plotted ways to undermine her. But Jasmine was ready. Her record was airtight. Medals glinted on her chest, each telling a story of perseverance and excellence. Her flight logs were impeccable. Hours logged on the B-2 Spirit, precision missions, flawless navigation. Her superiors, once silent, now praised her openly. The squadron commander called a special meeting. "Effective immediately," he announced. "Lieutenant Carter will lead the next major training mission." The room fell silent. Even the most vocal skeptics couldn't deny the shift in power. The mission was complex, a simulated strike deep into hostile territory. Jasmine coordinated the entire operation. From the moment the jets took off, her commands were clear and confident. The F-16s followed her lead flawlessly, trusting her expertise. As the B-2 Spirit soared silently over enemy lines, Jasmine's steady voice guided the squadron through radar blind spots and missile threats. Back at base, officers monitored the live feed. Her precision was unmatched. After the mission, the squadron gathered for debriefing. Captain Miller, standing at the front, nodded with a rare respect. "You earned this," he said simply. Jasmine's eyes scanned the room. She caught glances of grudging admiration mixed with lingering resentment. But for once, they couldn't deny her. Her allies grew. Young pilots who saw her dedication began to rally behind her. They shared stories of her late-night planning sessions and tireless training. Her quiet strength became a beacon. Yet, the opposition was far from over. Behind closed doors, some plotted to discredit her. Rumors spread, whispers of mistakes that never happened, doubts about her loyalty. Jasmine faced these attacks with the same calm she showed in the cockpit. She knew truth was on her side. She compiled documents, mission logs, testimonials. Every piece of evidence, a shield against the lies. One afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived at the base, a journalist from a major military publication. He had heard about Jasmine's story, her skills, her struggles, her rise against all odds. Jasmine agreed to an interview, speaking openly about her journey. Her words resonated beyond the base. She became a symbol of resilience and change. As the mission success was announced, the military brass convened. Orders came down to promote Jasmine, not just a pilot, but a leader. Her authority was now unquestioned. The men who once mocked her now watched carefully. After the last mission's undeniable success, a storm quietly gathered beneath the surface. The praise Jasmine Carter received only seemed to fuel the resentment simmering in the shadows of the squadron. Her rise was seen not as a victory, but as a threat, and those who felt challenged began plotting their counterattack. The first sign came in the form of whispered rumors. At first, they were subtle, hushed conversations in corridors, sly glances from those who once laughed openly. "She's not what she seems," one muttered to a small group. "There's more to her story. Maybe she's been cutting corners." Jasmine heard of these rumors, but didn't let them reach her. She stayed focused on her training, on her missions. But the whispers grew louder, more malicious. Then came the sabotage. Minor at first, a misplaced wrench here, a fuel gauge mysteriously malfunctioning there. But those small acts of disruption put lives at risk and put Jasmine's reputation on the line. One evening, Jasmine returned late from a briefing to find her flight jacket soaked in an unknown liquid, smelling of chemicals. A note pinned to it read, "Stay out of our skies, or this will be your last flight." The message was clear and chilling. Determined not to be intimidated, Jasmine reported the incident to her superiors. But the investigation was slow and opaque, as if someone was working behind the scenes to protect the saboteurs. Undeterred, Jasmine pushed harder. She enlisted the help of Colonel Stevens, who promised to get to the bottom of the sabotage. He warned her, "The higher you climb, the deeper the resistance. Stay vigilant." Meanwhile, the harassment escalated beyond sabotage. A coordinated smear campaign began. Anonymous emails circulated within the base, accusing Jasmine of insubordination and questioning her loyalty. Some pilots spread false stories, alleging she'd leaked mission information, a grave accusation that could end her career. Her social media was targeted too, with trolls and hateful comments flooding her accounts. The psychological warfare was relentless, but Jasmine refused to retreat. She confronted the rumors publicly during a squadron meeting, standing tall and addressing the accusations head-on. "I am here because of my skills and dedication, not because of luck or privilege," she stated firmly. "If anyone has evidence against me, bring it forward. Otherwise, stop undermining our mission." Her words resonated with many, but the faction opposing her remained stubborn. One of her closest allies, Lieutenant Ramirez, approached her after the meeting. "They're scared of what you represent," he said quietly, "but we've got your back." Despite the growing hostility, Jasmine found solace in her support network. She trained harder, studied longer, and flew with even more precision. She was preparing for the ultimate test, a high-stakes covert operation that would require absolute trust and flawless execution. The day before the mission, Jasmine received a direct warning from an unknown source. "Back off, or you'll regret it." It was a challenge, but also a call to arms. Jasmine knew the battle was no longer just about proving herself. It was about standing up for every person who'd been doubted, marginalized, or underestimated. And she was ready. The days that followed felt like the calm before a storm. But for Lieutenant Jasmine Carter, the storm was already breaking around her. It started subtly, a misfiled report here, a withheld piece of crucial intel there. At first, these small obstructions seemed almost accidental, the kind of bureaucratic errors that could happen in any large operation. But Jasmine knew better. She had learned to read between the lines. The forces working against her weren't just jealous pilots or petty rivals. This was something deeper, something systemic. One afternoon, as she sat in the operations room reviewing mission plans, her phone buzzed with an anonymous message. You think you're untouchable? Think again. Instead of fear, the message sparked a cold fury inside her. She was done hiding. Jasmine decided to dig deeper. She enlisted Lieutenant Ramirez, her closest ally, to help her investigate the recent sabotage and the spreading rumors. Together, they pored over flight logs, maintenance reports, and internal emails. The picture that emerged was chilling. Someone had been deliberately sabotaging equipment used by Jasmine and other pilots who supported her. Emails had been edited or deleted to cover tracks. Even worse, some high-ranking officers were implicated in shielding the saboteurs. Jasmine and Ramirez compiled a dossier, a clear trail of evidence that could not be ignored. But exposing this corruption meant taking on the entire chain of command. The risk was enormous. Meanwhile, whispers of Jasmine's troubles began leaking beyond the base. A junior airman posted an uncut video on a military forum showing a maintenance crew tampering with the jet's control systems. The video went viral among military circles, sparking outrage. Families of pilots expressed concern for their loved one's safety. The media caught wind. Suddenly, Jasmine's fight was no longer just internal, it was a public reckoning. Faced with mounting pressure, the base commander was forced to act. An official investigation was launched. High-ranking officers were placed on leave pending inquiry. The saboteurs were identified and suspended. But the fallout was just beginning. Some within the command structure lashed out, accusing Jasmine of fabricating stories to gain sympathy. They tried to paint her as a troublemaker, someone disrupting unit cohesion. Jasmine stood firm. She refused to let the narrative be twisted. With her mentor Colonel Stevens backing, she addressed the squadron. "This isn't about me," she said, voice steady. "This is about the integrity of our mission, the safety of every pilot, and the honor of this unit." Her words resonated deeply with many. The public response was powerful. Veterans groups, advocacy organizations, and military families rallied behind Jasmine. Letters poured in, expressing support and calling for systemic reform. Her story became a catalyst for change. The military announced new policies to improve transparency and accountability. But Jasmine's path was far from over. The unraveling had exposed wounds that ran deep. Trust had been broken. Healing would take time, and Jasmine was determined to lead the way. The fallout from the investigation rippled through the base like a shockwave, shaking the very foundation of the unit. For decades, the culture of silence and complicity had protected the wrong people. But now the walls were crumbling. As names were revealed and suspensions enacted, the once proud squadron found itself fractured. Captain Miller, once a staunch critic of Jasmine, was the first to step down amidst mounting evidence of his complicity. His resignation sent a clear message: no one was above accountability. Others followed. The squadron commander faced emotion. Several officers were formally reprimanded. The public apology from the military brass was swift and unprecedented. In a live press conference, General Harding acknowledged the failures and promised sweeping reforms. "This unit failed to uphold the values we hold dear," he said solemnly. "We will rebuild with integrity, transparency, and respect for all our servicemen and women." Within the squadron, the changes were palpable. New leadership arrived with fresh mandates. Training programs were overhauled to include diversity and inclusion initiatives. Pilot support networks were established, and at the center of it all stood Lieutenant Jasmine Carter. Her quiet strength had not only survived the storm, it had changed the course of the squadron. The men who once mocked her found themselves grappling with their own prejudices and actions. Many sought her out, some to apologize, others to learn. Jasmine listened but remained focused. Her mission was larger than personal vindication. She was there to pave the way for those who would come after. In the months following, Jasmine was promoted, not just for her skill in the cockpit, but for her leadership and courage. Her story became a beacon of hope and a blueprint for change within the military. The squadron, once known for its internal strife, earned recognition for its transformation. As the sun set on the old order, a new dawn rose. One where every pilot, regardless of gender or background, could soar without fear or prejudice. Jasmine Carter looked out over the runway. The B-2 Spirit poised silently against the horizon. She smiled. The fight was far from over, but the future was hers to shape. The winds of change swept through the base like a cleansing storm. What once had been an unyielding fortress of silence and hostility began to show cracks that no one could ignore. The reckoning had arrived not just for those who had opposed Lieutenant Jasmine Carter, but for the entire squadron. It began quietly, in whispered apologies and hesitant acknowledgments. Men who had once scoffed at her presence found themselves searching for words to make amends. One by one, they approached her, not with bravado, but with humility. Captain Miller was the first to reach out. The same man who had sneered, mocked, and sabotaged was now different. His shoulders stooped, eyes downcast. "Lieutenant Carter," he began, voice thick with regret. "I was wrong. About everything. I let fear and pride blind me. You didn't just fly that plane, you flew us all into a new era. If you can find it in your heart to forgive, I'd like to learn." Jasmine looked at him, the years of hardship reflected in his eyes. She didn't smile, but neither did she turn away. "Change doesn't come easy," she said softly, "but it's necessary." Others followed. Lieutenant Ramirez, once her staunch ally, now found himself navigating a new role, not just as a supporter, but as a bridge between the old and the new. The squadron held meetings, open forums where voices could be heard, mistakes confessed, and lessons shared. The culture of secrecy and fear was replaced by transparency and trust. For Jasmine, this was not about personal vengeance or triumph. It was about creating a legacy. One afternoon, as she walked through the hangar, a young pilot approached, a nervous, fresh-faced woman. "Lieutenant Carter, I just wanted to say thank you," she stammered, "for showing me that I belong here, too." Jasmine smiled for the first time that day. "You do," she replied, "and you'll do great things." But the reckoning wasn't just internal. Outside the base, the military community watched closely. Jasmine's story had sparked conversations across the country about diversity, inclusion, and the true meaning of service. Advocacy groups praised her courage. Military leaders studied her journey as a model for reform. Her face appeared in magazines, interviews, and documentaries. Yet, despite the spotlight, Jasmine remained grounded. She knew the fight for equality was ongoing. In private moments, Jasmine reflected on the road traveled. The battles in the sky had been brutal, but the battles on the ground, the ones against prejudice and doubt, had been even harder. She thought of the young recruits watching her now, the ones who had never faced the same obstacles. Her legacy was their future. As the squadron prepared for its next mission, Jasmine stood at the front, ready to lead. Her eyes scanned the faces around her, pilots of all backgrounds, united in purpose. The transformation was complete. The reckoning had brought them together, and the skies were theirs to conquer. The hangar was quiet that morning, save for the soft hum of machinery and the occasional distant call of a pilot preparing for flight. Jasmine Carter walked slowly through the rows of jets, her steps deliberate, her gaze steady. This was the place where it all began, and where so much had changed. The walls seemed to whisper stories of battles fought, of wounds healed, and of barriers broken. Jasmine stopped at the edge of the runway, the vast expanse of sky stretching endlessly above her. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the horizon with streaks of gold and amber. She breathed deeply, feeling the weight of the journey behind her and the promise of what lay ahead. Her hands folded a worn piece of paper, a letter from a young pilot who had written to thank her for paving the way. She looked down at it one last time, then tucked it carefully into her flight jacket. The B-2 Spirit stood nearby, sleek and silent, a symbol of the battles won and the missions yet to come. Jasmine's phone buzzed with a message from Colonel Stevens. "Ready for the next mission?" She smiled softly, fingers typing back. "Always." The squadron gathered for the morning briefing, a mix of seasoned veterans and fresh faces, all united under Jasmine's leadership. The atmosphere was different now, lighter, more open, yet charged with determination. Captain Miller, now a senior advisor after his resignation, stood quietly in the back, watching the transformation with a mix of pride and humility. Jasmine addressed the team. "Today is more than another mission," she said, voice clear and steady. "It's a testament to how far we've come, how much we've overcome." She looked each pilot in the eye. "We fly not just for ourselves, but for each other, for those who came before us, and for those who will follow." The room filled with nods and murmurs of agreement. Later, as Jasmine prepared to board the B-2, she paused and looked back at the hangar. Memories flooded in, the jeers, the sabotage, the endless battles for respect, but also the victories, the moments of quiet strength. The Allies gained, the barriers shattered. She whispered to herself, "This isn't the end. It's just the beginning." The engines roared to life as she climbed into the cockpit. The canopy closed over her like a protective shield. The runway stretched ahead, the path to the skies, her true home. As the B-2 lifted off, soaring gracefully into the endless blue, Jasmine felt a profound sense of peace. She was no longer just a pilot or a symbol. She was a leader, a pioneer, a beacon. Her story wasn't about overcoming obstacles to the finish line. It was about the ongoing journey, the fight for equality, the pursuit of excellence, and the courage to stand tall every day. If Jasmine's story inspired you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts. Remember, every end is just the start of something new. Thank you for joining us on this journey.